Good morning, everyone. Union bosses are accusing ministers of stonewalling requests for meaningful pay talks as a wave of winter strikes gains momentum. The TUC and Unison claim ministers are refusing to negotiate in good faith. In a joint letter to the Chancellor, they've insisted that no public sector workers want to take industrial action. Border Force staff are the latest to announce a walkout over the Christmas period. The government is considering tough new laws to limit strikes, but they won't come in time to stop the upcoming action. Border staff strikes will affect several airports from the 23rd of December to the 26th, then again from the 28th to the 31st. But they're just the latest to announce industrial action. Here we go. NHS workers are scheduled to walk out for 4 days in December. Ambulance staff on the 21st and the 28th. Nurses on the 15th and the 20th in England, Wales, and also in Northern Ireland. Keep up with this. Rail strikes will take place over 4 days next week, with more planned for January. And new strikes announced on Monday will start on Christmas Eve and run until early on the 27th, the day after Boxing Day, 6 o'clock in the morning. On top of that, postal workers are planning a 6-day strike. Walkouts by some Scottish teachers, which begin yesterday, will continue today. And driving test examiners, security staff at Eurostar, some civil servants will also go on strike this month. 12th is looking pretty optimistic for now, but apart from that, there is a strike on every day of December. Latest to announce is at Heathrow Airport. Sadia is there for us this morning. Hello, Sadia, tell us more.
Well, who can forget those long queues that we saw at Heathrow Airport over the summer when COVID restrictions and other factors left a staffing shortage and lots of people's travel plans were disrupted? Well, just ahead of another big holiday season, more warnings of travel chaos. This time, Border Force workers are due to strike at Heathrow Airport, London Gatwick Airport, Manchester, Cardiff and Birmingham. They're going to start their strikes from the 23rd right the way up to the December 31st, with only the exception of December 27th when they're not going to be striking. So that's 8 days of action, or you could say inaction, during what is one of the most busiest times of the year to travel. Now, the advice to passengers is to check with your airline before you travel, but passengers can expect things like long queues, having to turn up to the airport much earlier than they anticipated, and flight delays. So all of those things to look forward to or not ahead of the holiday season. Now, Heathrow Airport is very keen to emphasise that passport control is done not by its workers, but by those employed by Border Force. And the union, who represents many of those employees, says that the strikes are designed to have a significant impact, but that passengers should take their anger to direct their anger towards the government. All of this is about a dispute with the government over pay. So the government refusing to budge from that 2% pay increase, the workers wanting much, much more, which the government says is simply unaffordable at this time. It says that it has enough contingency plans in place to make sure that any disruption to the public is kept at a minimum, but the union is warning the government not to involve the Ministry of Defence, saying that they're just not equipped or trained at this stage.
Clock, goodness. Stay here. We can tell you what's happening. Now, an Arctic blast has hit the UK, which the Met Office says will send temperatures plummeting to -10 degrees Celsius in some places by the end of the week. My goodness, that's cold. Snow's fallen overnight in Scotland. These pictures were captured by traffic cameras. Weather warnings for snow and ice are in place there, as well as Northern Ireland, Wales, and the East Coast and southwestern England over the coming days. Let me tell you, it was absolutely freezing this morning. -1 when I got into my car this morning. So just how cold will it get? Let's find out from Joe, who's standing by for us. Hi, Joe. How cold will it be?
Yes, like you said, temperatures down to -10 in some spots over the next few nights where we've got snow cover. That will allow the temperatures to fall to the lowest temperatures. But yes, a very cold feel. We've got that Arctic air mass across us now, and it's bringing very cold conditions over the next few days. Wintry hazards as well, with ice being the main hazard over the next few days, but there will be some snow around. And like I said, the wintry theme continuing, but it's a shock to the system. We've had, the mild conditions we had through November and autumn, but look at those temperatures now. We're seeing -5 in places, -3, and overnight we did see -9.1 degrees Celsius in Scotland, so some very low temperatures overnight. And we will see temperatures like these over the next few nights. So temperatures down to sort of -6, -7 in cold spots across the UK, and potentially, like I said earlier, -10 where we've got the lying snow. So ice is the main hazard over the next few days. There will be some wintry showers around for exposed coastal areas, perhaps moving inland. We've got warnings in place. We've got snow and ice warning over northern Scotland. We could see 10 to 15 centimetres of snow over the hills there, and then ice warnings for other parts of the UK and Northern Ireland as well. And inland areas, dry, sunny, plenty of sunshine. It's just very cold. We will see daytime temperatures really only around 2 or 3 degrees Celsius, and it will feel colder than that in the brisk wind across northern Scotland as well, so wind chill there, and some places perhaps staying at freezing all day. And unfortunately, the cold theme is set to continue into next week, so it's the longevity of this cold spell. It's not what people want at the moment.
OK, absolutely. For now, thank you. The Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, is in Brussels this morning and is expected to discuss further moves to reduce the number of people trying to cross the Channel in small boats. Let's get more, should we? Adam standing by for us in Brussels this morning. What's the plan, Adam? Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, Suella Braverman has just arrived here in the past couple of minutes, right in the heart of Brussels, for a meeting about tackling cross-channel migration. It's the so-called Calais format. So this is a meeting of interior ministers or home secretaries from Britain, from France, Belgium, Netherlands, Germany, but also from Frontex, who are in charge of running borders across the European Union, Europol, European Policing, European Commission as well. So it's a high-level meeting, this one, to try, I think, to put some more impetus into the management of cross-channel migration. Remember, recently the Home Office have struck a fresh deal with French authorities about providing more money in order to bolster French activities on the northern French coast. We're just awaiting, in fact, the French Interior Minister, Gérald Darmanin, who's due here any second now. But of course, despite that increased funding, what we have seen recently are record numbers of people crossing the Channel in those small boats, and some pretty strong rhetoric coming as well from the Home Secretary, who referred to it as an invasion, who has consistently referred to these people as illegal, earning herself, I have to say, rebukes from the United Nations, who said there's no such thing as an illegal asylum seeker. And of course, plenty of people very upset about her using the term invasion. She hasn't backed down on any of that rhetoric. I think she's going to come here and ask to see more activity from her French counterpart, Mr. Darmanin. But this isn't just about the on the day. This is about long-term planning. It's about how you might address these people smuggling gangs. It's about how boats are being brought to northern France, and that is why it is so important to have the cooperation of the Belgians, the Dutch, the Germans, and of course European security services to try to stem this problem at source. Then there will be others who say, well, that if you're going to stem it at source, also got to look at why people are fleeing towards Britain from Iran, Iraq, Eritrea, Sudan, and so many other countries. This is, of course, an enormously contentious issue, and it's something that Suella Braverman has clearly put an awful lot of political store by. This time of year, when it's getting cold, used to be an enormous dip. You used to, frankly, not see any migrants crossing the Channel in small boats at this time of year. Now there are still people crossing. And the French just last night announcing that they were going to station 2 more boats in the area, one of them a naval boat, one of them a customs vessel, in order to assist in any rescues. It is just over a year since more than 30 people died in the Channel as they tried to cross over from France to Britain. That will be on people's minds. So will those various political initiatives. It's going to be very interesting to see whether we get just more words coming out of this meeting or whether we actually see concrete action.
OK, for now, thank you. Thanks a lot. Vladimir Putin has acknowledged that his forces could be fighting in Ukraine for a long time, but for now he won't be calling up any more soldiers. The Russian president made his remarks during a televised meeting with loyalists. He also warned that the threat of nuclear war is growing, but said Russia won't recklessly threaten to use such weapons.
We haven't gone crazy. We are aware of what nuclear weapons are. We have these means, and they are in a more advanced and more modern form than any other nuclear country. This is an obvious fact today. But we are not going to brandish this weapon like a razor running around the world. But of course, we proceed from the fact that it is.
Almost a fifth of child deaths are sudden, unexpected and have no immediate cause, according to a report by England's National Child Mortality Database. Among infants under a year old, unexplained death is significantly more likely in the most deprived areas, and it's often associated with factors like low birth weight, larger families, maternal smoking and parental substance abuse. The government's assurances about antibiotic supplies are being questioned by parents, some pharmacies and now an MP. The Health Secretary, Steve Barclay, told me yesterday that there's no concern about shortages. Health services are being stretched by Strep A infections, which have been linked to the deaths of 9 children. The Labour MP, Darren Jones, tweeted, "My wife and I have had to visit 8 pharmacies in Bristol and in London before we could get an urgent prescription for kids' antibiotics sorted, and now have 50% of what the GP asked for and have been told to come back for the rest. Reason? A shortage of antibiotics." Former US spy Anna Sakoulas is due to be sentenced via video link today at the Old Bailey for causing the death of teenager Harry Dunn. Ms Sakoulas pleaded guilty to careless driving in October after hitting the 19-year-old outside an American military base in Northamptonshire in 2019. She left the country soon afterwards, citing diplomatic immunity, and any sentence can't be enforced. His parents have told Sky they're still glad they fought for justice.
Yeah, totally. Totally and utterly. You know, being able to tell him, you know, because we do talk to him, as I'm sure everyone does who's lost a loved one, but I think it was just a good thing that I was seated in court, because I think I would have probably fallen down, because I just wanted to look up and just say, "We've done it, Harry. You've never broken a promise to either of the kids. And I sure as hell wasn't going to start 3 years ago."
Education Secretary Gillian Keegan is with us now. Good morning. It's good
Good morning.
to see you. Thanks for joining. What role does the government have to accept in ruining people's Christmases?
Oh, well, this is just the most disappointing news, actually, the fact that we've got these strikes going on. They're going on over Christmas. People are trying to see their families. You know, we don't get that much time to all come together. And so it's really, really disappointing. I mean, obviously, this is, you know, between the unions and the paymasters. We have actually accepted in full all of the recommendations from the independent bodies. And, you know, I do understand, I mean, I think all of us understand that inflation is high, and it's, you know, we've got this spike due to, you know, obviously external factors in the war in Ukraine. But you can't spend your way out of inflation. And what we're trying to do is get that balance. And we've accepted all the recommendations, and we've urged, you know, people not to strike. But, yeah, it's very disappointing that Border Force will be striking over Christmas.
We can't get on a train, we can't fly, there'll be problems on the roads. What are you going to do about it?
Well, we are doing our best to mitigate as far as possible. So in the case of Border Force, we've got 2,000 military personnel who are trained, who are going to try and mitigate, to try and help with some of those roles at the border. But, you know, we do expect there will be disruption and delays, but they will do their best, and they're also helping with the health service as well.
Rishi Sunak said yesterday he would do what he needs to do in order to keep people safe. What did he mean?
To keep people safe in regard to...
Well, I'm guessing he was suggesting that he would bring in emergency measures so that emergency services couldn't go on strike.
Well, we have got some emergency measures which have been introduced to Parliament, and I think they're looking at you know, what we need to do there. But yes, that has been mentioned, and we will. He said he will put legislation in place, so I expect that will continue to be brought forward. Yeah.
OK, so emergency workers should not be allowed to strike.
Well, I don't know what the extent of the. I mean, some people are not allowed to strike. I mean, you know, there are some contracts which, you know, say people can't strike. I mean, the military can't go on strike, for example, and they're the people who obviously are helping us in a last resort. But they
is it fair that squaddies who earn significantly less than people who are going on strike should be asked or expected to fill in?
Well, I think we should be extremely grateful for them for doing that, because I think they've accepted a pay settlement which I think is less and lower than some of the others as well.
Yeah, I mean, how much sympathy do you have for people though? Like we've talked previously about nurses using food banks, firemen are using food banks as well. We were told by their union this week. The pay review bodies came up with their figures, but that was before inflation was running at 11%.
Yes, and inflation is affecting every single person, not just in this country, actually, in many, many other countries. I mean, the OBR, obviously, the most important thing is you can't spend your way out of inflation, is to try and navigate so that you can bring inflation down. If inflation is high, everybody feels poorer. And that's what we're trying to avoid, to make that as short as possible. Because you can't just spend your way out of that. If we continue to do that, then we'll have inflation with us all for a lot longer. So it's really critical. And the OBR, I think, saw inflation starting to fall by, next year, the early part of next year. And all the things we put in place, the energy relief scheme, etc.
People still can't heat their homes.
Well, that's why we've got the
Secretary of
energy
State.
relief bill in place. That was £55 billion worth of support just for heating. So we are trying our best to get that balance.
But we're on the verge of a general strike. I mean, there's only one day throughout the rest of December that there isn't a strike in this country. We are on the verge of a general strike, and coordinated action by unions, we can just look at that as we're chatting, coordinated action by unions can bring down governments.
Well, I mean, that has happened in history, for sure. And
You're not worried about that?
You can only do what you can do to try and control this. You've got two options, haven't you? You've either got the option of trying to make a fair and balanced approach, because, of course, if we accepted all of the pay demands, I think it's £28 billion, that taxpayers would have to pay. That's not government money, that's the other taxpayers. So, what we're trying to do is get this fair and balanced approach. Now, in terms of the public sector, I know teachers are balloting at the moment, that 5% for an experienced teacher, which is on the bands, by the way. If you move up the bands, then that can be more than that, and 8.9% for a new teacher. So those are on the starting salaries, and we've raised the starting salaries. Yes, it's not matching inflation completely, but inflation will go down before the end of that year's period if we stick to our course and try to, take sensible measures as we outlined in the budget.
This government's on the precipice of a general strike.
Well, I mean, the reality is we have a number of people who are striking, and it's really disappointing. We have to pull together as a country. We've been through an awful lot. We've been through the pandemic. We're now supporting Ukraine in their war against Russia. These impacts, these are all things that are happening in every country, and they're not specific to our government at all. All we can do is try to react to them in a fair and balanced way. We have accepted all of the pay recommendations. They are not at inflation levels, but they are, reasonable, and they're highest in teaching. The teachers' pay rise is the highest in 30 years that we're recommending, that we're agreeing
And inflation is the highest in 40 years.
Yes, it is, but you can't spend your way out of inflation. This is a really simple message. If you continue to spend your way out of inflation, it'll last for longer and it'll impact everybody for longer. And that is where you get into these spirals. You can't get into a spiral. We have to take a sensible, balanced approach. We have to navigate the country through this. It's really disappointing that people are striking. And it's really disappointing they're striking at Christmas. We've missed... The last 2 or 3 Christmases have been completely disrupted due to the pandemic. People want to get together with their families. We don't get a lot of time off. This is a great time. We all try and catch up, and everybody's plans are being disrupted. Lots of us are interconnected. Lots of us have, our eldest is in France. Lots of people have people abroad and rely on the transport, public transport, to get to see them.
I know you're here to talk about funding for universities and colleges today. There is concern that primary schools are struggling, though, also to pay their energy bills when they need to keep those classrooms warm because of fears over Strep A.
Well, that's why on Monday this week, or Monday or Tuesday, I think you had Nick Gibb on, and we put in place 500 million just for short-term energy efficiencies within our schools. So every school has got an allocation which they'll get very quickly to do things like lagging, insulation, heating controls, LED lighting, things that will help them keep their bills down. Obviously, they also have the energy relief scheme, and we had £2 billion extra this year and next year for schools. They haven't had that money yet, but they'll be getting that. They'll find out their exact proportion of that they'll get by the end of the year, and they'll get it in April. So there is help. It is on the way, and we are working very much. And if anybody is particularly struggling, then they should get in touch with the department, because we do have people who will come and help you work through how you get those efficiencies in place.
A couple of very short questions, if I may. Apparently, the Albanian ambassador was speaking yesterday to the House of Commons committee, one of them saying that Albanian children are being bullied in their schools because of a campaign of discrimination by the Home Secretary. Will you speak to her about the language that she uses?
Oh, I haven't seen that. But, bullying in schools, we completely are against any bullying in schools. And, that isn't acceptable for anybody. I hadn't heard that report, but I will look back in the department and see if we've had any reports of that. But bullying is wrong anyway, for anybody, for any, whether it's where they come from or the colour of their skin, or whether they're a girl or a boy, it's completely unacceptable.
OK. Will you miss Matt Hancock?
Yeah, I was his PPS for a while, and I have worked with him in the health department. By the time I guess he goes, he'll have done about 14 years of service, so I guess he's decided, I think it was pretty clear when he went off to the jungle that he was probably thinking of a different career.
Doesn't look as though it was completely his choice, though, does it? It looks as though he would have been deselected anyway.
Well, I don't think anyone forced him to go to the jungle. I think that was his choice.
Yeah, no, I meant stepping down.
Well, I think there's... it was clear to me, I think I said at the time, that indicated to me that he was perhaps looking to, take on a different career path, one maybe more like yours, I don't know.
Keep your mitts off, Matt Hancock. It's good to see you as always. Thanks very much.
Thank
indeed.
you.
Thanks a lot. A quick look at the papers for you. The Mail says it's looking a lot like a general strike this Christmas after another wave of industrial action was announced yesterday. Nearly a third of all flight departures could be cancelled as a result of airport staff striking. That's according to the Times newspaper this morning. And in the Telegraph, senior military figures say that army staff should not have to miss Christmas to cover for NHS staff on strike. Tamara's here. Good morning.
Morning, Kay. Well, the Minister is very disappointed in the latest action by the Border Force and concedes there will be disruption. We've got 8 days of strikes announced by border guards at the key airports, the London airports, Manchester, Birmingham, Cardiff, from the 23rd of December right up to New Year's Eve. So there will be disruption to people's flights. People will be waiting longer in passport queues as a result of that action. And Mark Sawatka, the head of the PCS union, which represents most of those border guards, said it has been time for maximum impact and says that the government could solve it if they negotiated on pay, but looks very much like that is going to go ahead. The government are considering all kinds of things, I'm told, for legislation which is expected to be announced in the new year on strikes, minimum service levels, absolutely. And the Prime Minister said it yesterday at PMQs, and from the conversation I've had in government, it sounds as if all sorts of things are on the table, including further increasing the threshold for strikes, making some in all blue light jobs, basically ambulances, NHS staff and so on, unable to strike. But no decisions have yet been made on where they're going to go with it, but it's expected to come soon, but not soon enough for these strikes over the Christmas period.
Tamara, for now, thanks so much indeed. Thank you. And former footballer Karen Bardsley joining forces with the FA, Greater Manchester's mayor, and schools to get more girls into football. The mayor of Greater Manchester, Andy Burnham, is with us now. Hello to you, Mr. Burnham. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. More girls into football. Given that the Lionesses brought it home, surely it's a no-brainer.
You would think so. You would hope so, Kay, wouldn't you? But here in Greater Manchester, we certainly don't forget the letter that the Lionesses sent to the then leadership candidates, Rishi and Liz, back in the summer, making quite a simple call that all girls growing up should, by right, have the chance to play football during their 2 hours of PE in school. And at the moment, only about 2/3 do, so a third don't get that opportunity. So Greater Manchester, the capital of football, we want to set the way, and we're writing to all schools today, myself and Karen and some of the other members of the Greater Manchester Women's Football Board to say, come on, let's do this. Let's do this first and set the standard. All girls, the chance to play football, growing up when they're at school. That's the way to go to build on the Lionesses' success.
You set up the Greater Manchester Women's Football Board, I think I'm right in saying, in June. How's that going?
Oh, it's going really well. I mean, everyone's knew Karen before, but I think they've probably got to know her more this year. So she's chairing the board. We've got lots of people on it. We're just determined to make sure that the success that the Lionesses had in the summer becomes a permanent legacy. I think it is. I can feel that already. And obviously what's going on now with the Men's World Cup only reinforces that. It's amazing, isn't it, Kay, the change we've seen with regard to women in football, the promotion of women and girls football. But let's not leave it to chance. Let's not let those summer memories fade. Let's turn it into real change for girls and young women growing up now. And that's what we're determined to do in Greater Manchester.
I think there's a big clash on Sunday in the Women's Super League, Manchester City, Manchester United playing at the Etihad Stadium. Is this weekend a good chance to push women's football for the region as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's going to be a huge game at the Etihad on Sunday, City versus United. And ahead of that, Kay, we're holding a civic reception this evening, myself and the leader of Manchester City Council and some of the civic mayors, because we want to make sure that what was achieved in the summer really isn't forgotten. We hope the men are about to repeat it, of course, but this feels a good moment to just honour the Lionesses with a civic reception. But also as we look forward to that massive Manchester derby at the weekend, the country needs a lift, Kay, doesn't it? The Lionesses gave us that lift. Let's hope, obviously, we'll be seeing the same come Sunday night, and hopefully the men going on to victory as well.
OK, just checking my diary. I can't see that I had an invite to that reception. There we go.
On the way.
You were celebrating it last weekend as well, weren't you? All for a good cause, but we did see Angela Rayner on the decks.
Yeah, she was born to it, I would say. No, she was brilliant, to be honest. It was all for our homelessness charity, and we're seeing, sadly, a slight rise in the number of people sleeping rough, I think linked to the cost of living crisis. So ahead of the winter, we said, right, let's raise some money. A DJ battle, Manchester versus Liverpool. You can imagine what that was like, Kay. It was brilliant, actually, though. Steve Rotherham came over, brought some special guests. Angela was my special guest. I asked her to go, but she really gave everybody a real lift. And to be honest, people say, "Oh, should she be doing it? Should I be doing it?" When you're the mayor of Greater Manchester, you're the mayor, obviously, of the home of music. And if you're not getting on the decks, you're not doing your job.
I don't know if you were at the event that Keir Starmer was at in Leeds, talking about devolution, a 2-year report. Is that really the thing to get voters' pulses racing ahead of the next election?
I was really pleased to see Gordon and Keir standing there promising to rewire the country, because we're not going to ever level up this country if we don't change the way it works and make sure places like the north of England have more power. I mean, it's what it all comes down to be honest, power. It's the fundamentals. If you're going to make this country fairer, you're going to have to rewire it first. So I was really pleased to see that commitment. I was with the German ambassador on Tuesday, Kay. In Germany, in the constitution, there is a law that says all of the regions of Germany must have equivalent living standards. And there is a redistribution of funds across Germany to always ensure that that is what happens. The same standard of transport in all parts of Germany. Can you imagine if we had a law in the UK that all parts have to have equivalent living standards? Can you imagine what a different country we would be today if that had been in place for decades, as it has been in Germany? So, yes, this is a prerequisite to making this country fairer and more equal. And it may not set everyone's pulses going, but it does mine, and I was really pleased to see it.
OK, quick question before I let you go. We're almost out of time. This coke mine that's opening in Whitehaven, are you in favour?
I can't help but feel it's a backward move. It's time to embrace the future. I understand why people there will feel it's the right way to go, but build industries now that will last not a decade or two, but a century. And the potential for renewable energy in Cumbria is massive. So that's what I would say, Kay. Embrace the future. And that's what we're trying to do in Greater Manchester. You know, build a green economy, because the jobs in the green economy will be there for a century or more.
OK, good to talk to you as always, and have a great Christmas. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Enjoy this evening, won't you?
Oh, yes, we certainly will. We'll pass on your best to them.
OK, take care. Thank you.
See you. Bye.
Back to our top story for you now. 2 million passengers using some of Britain's busiest airports over the festive season could face long delays and possibly flight cancellations. The cause, a strike by Border Force staff. Joining us now from Heathrow to discuss this further and the impact that it's going to have on your holiday plans is Simon Calder, travel editor for The Independent, of course. Hi, it's good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning. How worried should we be about Christmas being ruined?
Well, look, Kay, as you know, I'm always trying to be as positive as possible. Travel is the industry of human happiness. But right now, I'm looking very, very concerned about, well, we simply don't know what will happen. Let me take you through what the scenario could be on Friday, the 23rd of December. That's the first day of the strike. Now, as you know, you don't have your passport checked when you're leaving the country. It's just coming in. But we're right now in the middle of the big wave of arrivals. Those planes have been coming in since, well, before 5 a.m. today. And you've got tens of thousands of people coming into Heathrow, the busiest in Europe among airports. And if those people start building up, if queues start building up in the arrivals hall, then you're going to have to hold the passengers on the plane. You've been on a flight for hours, but you're still stuck there. That's annoying. But actually what it then does means that those flights cannot turn around and leave full of passengers. So passengers in the departures area will build up. Then you're not going to have any gates for the other incoming flights. So that's when diversions and cancellations begin. And what we've been seeing overnight is that the Director General of the UK Border Force has contacted the aviation industry and said, we really need to talk about proactive cancellations of up to 30% of flights so that we don't get chaos at Britain's airports. And that, of course, if you've got a booking for Christmas, well, I'm afraid if it's from Heathrow, Gatwick, Manchester, Birmingham, Glasgow or Cardiff, at this stage, I can't absolutely swear that it's going to go ahead as you imagine.
Oh, that's not great, is it? What happens if your flight's cancelled?
Well, if I may, if your flight is cancelled, well, it's very, very clear. Under European air passenger rights rules, the airline has to get you to your destination as soon as possible, even if that means buying a flight on another airline. But look, as we have seen, you might remember the drone incident at Gatwick a few years ago. If there is disruption at Christmas with hundreds, sometimes thousands of flights cancelled, then there simply aren't the seats available to get people there. Now, I really don't want to spread any upset or concern, but people have already been getting in touch with me. Some of them are saying, look, I really don't want the uncertainty. Can I just cancel my flight, my holiday and get a full refund? Well, no, at the moment you won't, because, of course, all the airlines want to fly as normal. I've been in touch with the other big airports. Manchester say, yep, we're expecting disruption, we're expecting cancellations. Gatwick, down in Sussex, second busiest in the UK, say, actually, we think that there aren't going to be any effects on flights. So let's hope that they are right and everybody gets through this. But right now, on top of the chaos, of course, on the railways, it's a very, very uncertain time for travellers.
Just a quick thought about Eurostar.
Eurostar actually not looking too bad. We've got threatened strikes on the 16th, on the 18th, on the 22nd and the 23rd of December. That will affect people possibly going out of London St Pancras. That's security staff. However, that may well be sorted out. And the UK Border Force action is not going to affect people who are heading either on Eurostar or Eurotunnel, that's the car carrying service, and it's not going to affect the main way in and out of the UK, which is the Port of Dover.
OK, great to see you. Thanks very much for joining us. Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Thank you.
Some glimmers of hope there, I think, from Simon. Britain witnessing the worst squeeze on incomes, though, in a generation. New figures shared with Sky News suggest 4.3 million low-income households are now struggling to afford day-to-day essentials and have fallen behind with their bills. All year, our People and Politics correspondent Nick Martin has been following the struggle of families battling to keep their heads above water and has this special report.
I've not had anything to eat since breakfast. I've got no money to get any food or get any drink. Really hit me now how bad things really are. I've got 20p to my name. That's it.
Danielle and her 2 children, Brooke and Bryony, have struggled through this entire year. Life's essentials like gas, electric and food, now so expensive they often go without.
There is no heating. My fire is the only source of heat. I feel like we've gone back in time. Every day it's just another fight. It's just, what are they going to eat today? How am I going to keep the house warm? How am I going to get them to school? How am I going to, it's just trying to get through one day at a time, and it's a struggle.
You're Wally, ain't you?
I know who I get that from.
According to the Joseph Rowntree Foundation, as the year nears its end, 4.3 million low-income households have fallen behind on their bills and are going without an essential like food, warm clothing or even prescriptions. And 3 million low-income households haven't been able to heat their homes, and that's before the predicted cold weather next week. The average low-income family is in arrears of over £1,600, with 2.4 million now relying on credit to pay their bills.
I've got £6.63 emergency remaining, and I owe £7.18.
The math's just not adding up there.
No. And then gas-wise, that's outside. Oh, I hate it. I haven't even looked at it recently because I daren't.
You owe 70 quid.
Yep.
So you're in debt to the gas and you're in debt to the electricity.
Yep. And I haven't even got anything emergency-wise on the gas. I've got
so your
nothing.
gas is off at the moment?
Yep.
You've got no gas?
No gas. Because I can't afford to repay that right now.
At night, I struggle to get to sleep because I think, what if this time next year I'm not in this place? What if I'm in a completely different place, or I'm in a homeless shelter, or I'm out on the streets or something?
Like other households, Danielle's received government support to help pay for her electric, but she's still struggling.
This is where I spend all of my evening. My little heater goes on before bed, and as soon as I get up in the morning to try and make it more bearable. It's my safe place, but it's also my worst place. Everything hits me when the kids are in bed. So it's my sanctuary and my dark place. I don't know how I'm going to face Christmas, if I'm completely honest. I think it is going to be the case of little things that cost nothing, but it's all I can do. I can't plan for tomorrow. I just got to deal with it when it comes.
Danielle is now falling behind on the rent. She's coming to terms with a stark reality. She no longer has enough money to live on. Nick Martin, Sky News, Leicestershire.
Back to those strikes now, and an upcoming industrial action will also affect the ports these holidays as well. Richard Ballantyne is the CEO of the British Ports Association. Hi, good to see you. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. How do you expect action to impact on the ports?
Morning, Kay. Pleased to be with you again. It's nice to see you. It's been a little while. I think last time we talked about Brexit, so it's always kind of quite exciting times, I guess, when we speak to people like you. We're not expecting a huge deal of disruption at the moment. The indication from Border Force at present is that it's going to primarily affect airports, although one seaport, Newhaven, has been specified in their list of ports that could see some, real impacts, etc. But we're waiting for that 14-day notice. And I have to say, we do sympathise with those who are going on strike, and we understand the current pressures, and we've seen industrial action across the economy, and we do understand why it's happening. But obviously, we're looking at mitigating any impacts of our ports and borders.
Yeah, I mean, we do often see when there's a challenge, big long queues at the likes of Dover. How prepared are we to deal with that this time?
Well, I think we're in a fairly good place. I have to say, Border Force have been, as you can expect, have been all over this. This is, critical importance to the Home Office. There's lots of contingency planning going on. Obviously, we don't fully have all the details yet. PCS has that 14-day notice period to comply with. So once we get a little bit closer to the 40 days from the 23rd, I think we'll know a little bit more. We have had several conversations with the Border Force. Some of those are in confidence, but it's clear that they've got lots of mitigating arrangements and measures. They've trained parts of the army, I understand, to man our passport controls. So we're fairly confident there should be minimal impacts, but obviously I think it's sensible for everyone in the sector, also travellers, to work out what the impacts may be on any journeys they plan to take.
What's your advice to anybody who might be thinking about travelling via the ports over the Christmas period?
Well, I'd keep an eye on all the advice from people like the Border Force and the Home Office, and also the carriers. I think that's the key. So if they've booked either with airline operators or with ferry operators, I think it's worth following what the advice is from those carriers on websites, etc. And hopefully there'll be minimal impacts, but I think it's obviously worth paying close attention to what the news is there.
OK, it's good to talk to you. Thanks for taking the time. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks, Kay.
Been telling you about plummeting temperatures, haven't we? -1 this morning when I got up. Right across the UK are problems and raising concerns for those experiencing homelessness. Severe weather emergency protocol has been activated, meaning emergency accommodation will be provided for rough sleepers. Rebecca Sycamore from St Mungo's Homeless Charity is with us now. Hi, good morning. What are the challenges you're facing?
Well, it is, as you said, very, very cold out there this morning and over the night. And our teams have been out getting people off the streets, making sure that they're in a safe, warm place to sleep. I think that, we are, continually worried. The weather's not getting better. It is still really cold. We need to keep the focus on getting people off the streets really quickly, making sure they can stay inside. Also, being warm during the day as well. So it's not just about somewhere to sleep. It's about the daytime temperatures and making sure that people are in warm spaces.
Where do you put them?
So we have a whole range of extra beds that are triggered. Some of them are emergency bed spaces. Some of them are spaces that we normally are vacant for some other reason. They might be kind of spaces that are not normally bedrooms, but we can make available as a kind of a place, a safe, warm place for people to sleep. People might be sleeping in offices, in some of our existing accommodation projects, hostels. So a whole range of places. We're very inventive and creative about what we can use.
Do you find that homeless people want to take you up on the offer, or do some of them still want to stay on the street?
I mean, I was talking to a colleague last night, and she said that a lot of people were saying yes, they wanted to come in.
Too cold.
Too cold. People, have, other health problems. They've got kind of, maybe more susceptible to respiratory conditions because of being out on the streets for longer. So yeah, people were saying yes and wanting to come in. So that was really positive, actually.
And do you give them food and?
Yeah, sure.
Well,
so warm food. See what people need, and then I think once we have people in, that's not the end of it, that's the start. So then we have an opportunity to ask them and to work with them about what it would take to keep them in for longer. So it's always about using that opportunity.
And how long do you offer them?
Well, so it depends. We hope that if people come in, that we can keep them in for a few days for the start. If there's a relatively quick solution for their homelessness or their rough sleeping, then we can progress that. Some cases can be really complicated, and we may try and hold on to people, but people might want to go back out again. But it is a start of a relationship, which I think is really valuable. Right now, though, it's definitely about kind of saving people's lives and getting them off the streets.
So if they stayed out?
I mean, it's freezing.
Freezing.
People are sleeping on kind of pavement in, shop doorways, on the streets. It's not the time to be out on the streets. I think it is really, really, really dangerous.
And what can people do to help?
So if people want to help, there's an app and a website called StreetLink, and you can let us know about people who are sleeping on the streets in your area. we'll take that information and pass it on to local teams, and they will go out and try and find people. And so you can be our eyes and ears in getting people off the street.
How many people do you think you might be able to help during this period?
I don't know. I mean, the teams that I've spoken to will want to, they'll have lists of people that they're really worried about. They will want to get everybody off the streets. I know
And it's not just in London, I'm guessing?
It's not just in London. I was just about to say, we were talking to people in Bristol last night, and they were still working at midnight, getting people off the streets, so.
And when people are off the streets, you do what you can to try to make sure they don't go back, but some will.
Yeah, some will. But then our outreach teams will be there working with them anyway, and so will other outreach teams around the rest of the country. It's, you know, we're not just there when the cold weather. We're there every day of the year.
Of course. And given that the prediction is, we'll have a look at the weather in a second actually, but given that the prediction is that it's going to be a bitterly cold winter, what do you do about funds?
Well, we're starting. We've got plans for this. You know, it is tight. We are under the financial pressure, as lots and lots of charities are, and so we're doing everything we can to raise money to kind of get the services and to be able to carry on running services, working with our local authorities as well, and working with colleagues so that we're clever about resources. But it's a real strain. We are struggling. It's a tough time of year.
At the end of the day, do you feel that you have potentially saved people's lives, or do you feel, I can't believe that so many people live rough?
Or both. Both. I mean, the outreach teams have done amazing work. They will have worked really late last night. They will be out this morning. They will be saving people's lives. And they will be delighted that they're able to work with people and to get people into safety. But we will all be thinking, you know, we need not to be doing this as well. You know, as important that is, we have to kind of, you know, work towards a sustainable solution.
Yeah. StreetLink, if you see somebody and you are anxious that they may need help, go to StreetLink. It's good to see you. Thanks very much indeed.